For decades, the medical establishment has trained us to view the human body as a crude mechanical engine. If a part breaks, a surgeon cuts it out. If a chemical level is off, a pill suppresses it. This reductionist approach works well if you have a shattered femur or a sudden bacterial infection, but it fails to stop the modern epidemics of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and the general physical decline of aging. Around the year 2000, a massive shift in biology took place. Genomic tools revealed that you are not a collection of isolated gears. Instead, you are a glittering web of highly sensitive biological networks, sculpted by billions of years of evolution. When you take a blunt, mechanical approach to a delicate evolutionary web, the system breaks down. That mismatch explains why modern hospitals struggle to cure chronic systemic illness. To fix these systemic breakdowns, we have to redefine health as Darwinian fitness. Darwinian fitness is a measure of how successfully an organism is adapted to survive and reproduce in its specific environment. When you feel vibrant and healthy, it means natural selection is successfully tuning your biological networks to handle the surroundings you live in. Chronic sickness represents a predictable breakdown of this evolutionary adaptation. The first variable driving this breakdown is time. Conventional medicinal disease is used as physiological wear and tear, like a car slowly rusting in the rain. Evolutionary reality tells a different story. This chart shows Hamilton's forces of natural selection, which measure how actively nature weeds out genetic defects at different stages of life. During childhood and early adulthood, evolutionary surveillance holds at 100%. But after our peak reproductive years, that force sharply drops. As we age past our reproductive utility, the evolutionary instruction manual simply runs out of pages. Nature stops providing the genetic code required to keep our complex networks tuned, and our biology degrades into static. We know this isn't physical wear and tear because some organisms don't age at all. Take the sea anemone. It reproduces by splitting symmetrically down the middle. Because it never develops into a traditional adult that stops reproducing, the force of natural selection never drops, and the anemone remains biologically immortal. Human aging occurs because nature stops actively selecting for our survival, leaving a genetic blind spot in our later years. The second breakdown of adaptation comes down to genetics. To successfully tune our health, natural selection requires a massive, diverse pool of genetic variation to pull from. When populations isolate into small groups, they experience a low effective population size. Effective population size is the number of individuals actually contributing genes to the next generation. When this number shrinks, a random process called genetic drift, where chance events cause certain gene variants to disappear, overpowers the helpful effects of natural selection. Without the buffer of outbred diversity, devastating recessive flaws easily surface. Instead of weeding out mutations, the restricted gene pool allows inherited diseases to take root and degrade the health of the population over time. True health relies on a vast, interconnected web of genetic diversity. Isolating our gene pools breaks the evolutionary mechanism that protects us from inherited disease. The final, and perhaps most immediate breakdown, is evolutionary novelty. Natural selection is incredibly slow. It takes thousands of generations to adapt a species to a specific environment. For over 1 million years, human biology was tuned for a highly active hunter-gatherer lifestyle. We thrived by moving constantly, surviving on a diverse diet of wild plants and animals. Then, humans began surviving on diets built heavily on cultivated grass seeds and mammalian milk. This sudden shift forced our bodies to cope with an environment they hadn't adapted to. When we examine ancient Egyptian mummies from these early agricultural societies, we find clear historical evidence of chronic cardiovascular disease. Today, we have pushed this mismatch to the absolute extreme. We subject our ancient bodies to deep physical inactivity, surrounded by aisles of processed synthetic foods our biology does not know how to handle. Our modern epidemic of obesity and chronic disease reveals a severe biological mismatch between the ancient world we evolved for and the industrial world we now inhabit. Treating the body like a machine with a single fountain of youth pill
or a surgical quick fix will always fail. These interventions ignore the vast, interconnected reality of our evolutionary biology.
We cannot rewrite our genetics, and we cannot completely halt the Hamiltonian forces of aging. But we do retain absolute control over the most critical variable in this equation, our environment. You do not have to accept the medical-industrial complex as the ultimate authority on your well-being. You can step outside that rigid, mechanical framework and take personal agency over your own biological environment. By deliberately aligning our modern diets and physical activities with the evolutionary conditions our bodies were actually tuned for, we can reclaim the profound health that nature originally built for us.